this is the plan for the meeting is to welcome our good friend Harold Aune to the to the event where he's going to share with us information on building boats, answer questions, and possibly even take us around and give us a tour of the shop. So we'll see where the information goes. But what we'll do, and we'll get to Harold eventually, but let's go over a quick agenda of where we're going to go. We'll start off with the proverbial round table. It's good to see you again, John, Ashley. Nice to see your face. You too, Bud. You too, Michael. And as always, Ron. And so we'll go through, share a little bit about where we're coming from, some of our experiences that we've had with the Oar Board in the last little bit. And then we'll talk about a couple of ambassador wins and reminder each other of the resources that are available to get the Oar Board brand out there. And then then we'll turn it over to Harold to to have a conversation, and then we'll wrap it up. Is there anything else I'm missing from the list?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, well, if that's it, then I'm going to start moving around. And how about we start with Ron? So tell me, where are you coming from, and tell me about an Oar Board experience you've had in the last month or so.
Absolutely. If everyone was listening in, the non-Oar Board experience was probably the big issue. Is I was on a 11-inch wide racing shell off of my floating home here on the Columbia River, and I screwed up, and my dismount ended up going into 41-degree water. And I have decided that I am never going to have anything but the Oar Board out in cold winter conditions. So that's a big deal. It's life or death for people, and the Oar Board could be the thing that saves you. Have a guy coming down from Seattle tomorrow to check out an Oar Board, and I've had a couple other people rowing on the Columbia River. And Diana, I feel horrible. I didn't take my Oar Board to Cabo. My 3 weeks ended up being 7, and I had nothing to row. And usually it could be done. So never again.
Yeah, you didn't plan to be there that long.
Yeah, I just, that was too long not to be rowing, but good to see you all. And Harold, I have a conflict today. I'm going to have to bail out, but my respect to you, sir, for conceptualizing, founding, and giving the opportunity to the world to really row anywhere. I think it's fantastic, and thank you.
Fantastic. Good to hear.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Ron. And how about we move on to Ashley? Ashley Falloon, where are you calling in from? Can you tell us a little bit.
I'm calling in from Stittsville, which is just outside of Ottawa. I actually row up in Calabogie, where we've had a family cottage since I was 3, and my parents moved up there. So I just keep mooching on them and going up. I pulled it out of storage yesterday over the Easter weekend, but the ice just went out and there was white caps, so I was too wimpy to try and get out on the water because I was worried I'd just get soaked with freezing cold water. So I haven't had my Oar Board out on the water since the fall, so I'm itching to get out. I've had a few inquiries back in March, so I'm going to follow up with them now that the water's open and the ice is gone. See if they want to come and try it out. But we actually have in Calabogie, there's a really active Facebook group. A lot of seniors and a lot of new people to the area, especially in pandemic. So I'm going to be posting some info on the Calabogie folks Facebook page to see if anybody's interested. I already had a few people out last summer kind of flagging me down when I was out on the lake. So see if anybody's interested in trying it out and wants to get in on the action. So fingers crossed. I might also get in touch with, there's a rowing club not too far, about 20 minutes on the river. See if they're interested in having a look at them.
Yeah, what's the rowing club down the river?
It's the Burnstown Rowing Club.
Okay.
It's a little teeny tiny town that's about an intersection,
Yeah.
pretty much. Rural Ontario.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Try and get it. I used to row with them after I got back from New Zealand, where I rowed varsity. So rode with them for a summer, but they contend with a lot of wake surf boats now. So I think they might be interested in slightly stabler rigs to try out and for their learn to row.
Yeah, no, it's a great addition to a rowing club to have some oar boards on hand, and especially if the wake boats are out creating
Yeah.
waves. Yeah, it's a great area of the country. My wife has a cottage also nearby.
Oh, nice.
On the Quebec side, more near Norway Bay, Bristol area. But it's I love what you talk about. Well, you're talking about going to the Calabugie Facebook page and posting on
Yeah.
the Facebook page. We've had a number of other ambassadors do that, and it's been very successful. It's a great way to meet your neighbors and connect with other people in your community, and two, it's a great way to share the Oar Board and get more people on it. So that's
Yeah, and we have a lot of stand-up paddle boards on the lake. So if people find out, that's what I did. We had a family one, and I got bad knees, so standing up on it is not great. But when I found the Oar Board, I was ecstatic. So I can actually partake in using the family stand-up paddle board, and there's a ton of them on the lake. So people already have part of what they need. So anybody looking to get a little more active, it might be a good sell.
Yeah, it's a great upsell. So it's great to hear from you, and great to hear you had positive experience in New Zealand too. Great rowing culture.
Yeah,
down
I loved
there.
it. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to have you on the call, Ashley. And let's move on to John. Where are you coming from? And tell us a little bit about your experience.
Hi, I live just outside of Philadelphia, and I have a cottage up in the mountains of PA. Nothing like the mountains out west there, but we call them mountains. And I have the cottage is on a 65-acre lake. It's called Fiddle Lake. Right now, I'm the only person with a oar board on the lake. But that's a great idea to post on the Facebook group, because we have one of those, and we have a bunch of people with stand-up paddle boards too. And I don't know who was talking earlier about the racing shell, but thoroughly agree that cold water and 11-inch boats don't go together. On my 65-acre lake, there were 60 houses, and I would say that 55 of them have motor something or others. So that's why I have the Oar Board up there. I really love rowing, and the cottage is made for eating and drinking, and that doesn't work unless you can exercise some of it off. So just got to get a couple more people on the lake and on the river. I row out of the Schuylkill River, on the Schuylkill River, out of White Marsh Boat Club. One of the other members at White Marsh has an Oar Board already for him and his wife. So who knows, maybe we can get other members interested in it, but we'll see there.
Yeah, well, it is interesting because we've been building a relationship with a club up in Canada, the Argos Rowing Club, and they've chosen to purchase a bunch of oar boards to use, one, to bring more people on board, to lessen the learn to row, the time to learn to row. Someone can show up, and 5 minutes later you can push them off on one of these things. But they're also, this year, now that we're on the other side of COVID, they'll be experimenting with a rental program, so that when random people walk up to the club and say, "Hey, can I rent one of these boats?" That we can take out, there's actual equipment that you're confident that you can push people out in. So sounds like there's great opportunity. You'll take Ashley's lead, put a post on the Facebook group, meet your neighbors, show off your equipment, and stay fit, burn off that booze, and barbecue.
Unfortunately, the lake one end to the other is only 1.2 K, so it gets pretty boring.
That's great. And we've got Michael on the call. It's good to see you back on. Is it Mike Carr? Are you there? I don't know that I can hear you. You might not be connected to audio. It's like you're in a car driving.
Yeah.
Well, we're still trying to figure out where the sound comes from. when Michael Carr is out on the East Coast, we saw him. He came out as an ambassador when we were in Boston, ahead of the Charles, and he helped us at the stand. It was great to get to know him. He showed us some of the pictures of where he worked. He does a lot of industrial work, and I'm holding up my hands because he had one of those containers that you see at the start of The Simpsons, where Homer Simpsons is handling the the nuclear waste, but I think it's more sandblasting that he's doing with those with the special gloves behind the glass wall. But if you figure out the sound, Michael, we'd love to hear from you. But I think in the short term, I'm going to move on to Jen, if you're wanting to log in and share where you're coming from.
Hi, everyone. This is Jen Grow. I'm in Chicago and just got my Oar Board sent to me in Arizona this January. So I launched off Lake Pleasant and Bartlett Lake in Arizona. And I have yet to get them out on the Chicago River, but I'm looking forward to that. We just started with practice for our team, our club team, just this last week. So it's still a little cold, I think, to be doing solo trips. But lots of interest from the team in the Oar Board. So I'm looking forward to getting out and playing with them in our city and on the lake, hopefully, as we kind of get the spring season underway.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. And so you're involved with a club in Chicago and Arizona, or just a club in Chicago?
No, the club is in Chicago,
Yeah.
and Diana was great in helping me. The Oar Boards are for personal use or for just playing when the team's not practicing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to try them out before. So Arizona was the alternate place, so we had them shipped down there actually.
Yeah, that's great. And it's, you know, what I've always thought is that it's great to have the Oar Boards around at the club. So even if you have parents showing up as they're dropping off their kids, you can get the parents and say, hey, do you want to get out and do you want to check out the river and play around while your kids are training?
Yes,
And
I like that idea. And I also like how you said, like, it's easy to have success fairly early. So we're looking forward to, I think, working with kids, you know, like 12, 13 nieces and nephews and getting them out to row, hopefully.
Mhm. Well, and I think it's important with the sport of rowing because those long skinny boats can be very difficult to set up, to have an experience that's positive. And even if they only try it out for a week, to be able to self-identify as a rower, so that later on in life, if they decide they want to pick up a rowing machine or hop or try something else, they've had that experience as a young person and it was positive. So
Yes,
yeah, so right on, Jen. Love what you're doing.
thank you. And good to meet everyone, by the way. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Bud, tell us where you're coming from and give us a story.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm coming from Greenville, South Carolina. I've had my Oar Board for about a year now, and I got my cards, thank you, and I am handing those out as often as I can. I've given the information to a realtor who likes to row, and I figure she knows or meets a lot of people, and maybe she can let those people know about the Oar Board. Also, our cleaning person, I've let her know because she kayaks, and then I posted on our, we have a paddleboard group on Facebook in the upstate area of South Carolina, and I posted there that if anyone on a paddleboard has ever considered changing it into a rowing boat, they might be interested in checking out what I have. So, and then Easter Sunday, we had some clients of my wife's over for lunch, and I was talking to the guy, and he used to row in a club down in Atlanta, and he asked to see a picture of my Oar Board, and I said, I'll do better than that. You can see it in my garage. So I took him out my garage, and he's interested, and asked me to contact him when I'm out on the lake next, and he's going to bring his kayak and check out my Oar Board.
Oh, that's awesome. You're really showing it off. That's yeah, that's great work, bud. And you're getting a lot out of the cards. You enjoy having the cards to pass out to people.
I do. They're great. It's nice to have something to hand somebody, after you talk to them, so that they can remember later on who they talked to and what they were talking about.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love the idea about you giving some cards to a real estate agent, because they're hyper networkers. They're always jumping around.
Oh yeah.
So it's yeah, that's great. It's great to see you, Bud, and great to see you coming in from Greenville, South Carolina.
Great to see you guys. Thanks.
Yes. And let me see if there is anyone else left on the list. I think the only last one is Michael, if you've figured out your sound, of which I'm hearing nothing. So we will, let's move on to Harold. And before we go to Harold, I just wanted to remind everybody who is on the call of the few resources, and also talk about one of our ambassadors who wasn't able to join us, a guy by the name of Michael Rawlings. So I'm going to share a little bit of what he got up to. And Mike Rawlings joined the Concept 2 rowing challenge, the World Erg Challenge, from March till April, and was able to get Team OarBoard into the 6th spot onto the scoreboard, with logging 688,000 meters with 2 members, which pretty much all came from Michael Rawlings. He logged around 600,000 meters on his rowing machine. So Michael really setting an example for us all, getting miles off the water when you can't be off the water. And Michael Rawlings, if you ever get a chance to see him or meet him, or at least see him on the Facebook group, he's a recovered vet who had heart disease, and found that rowing and oarboarding really turned around his health and enabled him to live a longer, healthier life. So it's great to have people like Mike Rawlings in our oarboarding ambassador community. And just also want to make sure everybody knows that there are resources available for people that are out there. We have, I'm trying to think what we have in the shop right now. We do have t-shirts, is that right, Diana?
Yeah, and hats.
Yeah.
I think for the
So
stock.
Yeah, so we've got t-shirts and hats available for people. So if you're interested, please let Diana or I know, and we'll send you. That's the benefit of being an ambassador. We'll give you some gear to wear the brand, and to and to show it off. And there are referral rewards, and so we do ask everyone who purchases who's referred the sale. And so those of you who refer a sale, you get either $100 cash or $300 credit towards new equipment. And like Bud was saying, there are business cards that are available. So if that helps you distribute the message, and to once you've connected with someone and they've asked you a question, you give them the card, and it helps lock that conversation in their memory. And if you're new at rowing and you want to get some coaching, Marty Hawk has an open invitation to anybody who wants to talk with him. And he's been coaching rowing for the last 40, 50, 60 years. So he would be more than happy to give a virtual rowing coaching session. And he's a man on the move too. So maybe he'll show up in your area and give you a personal coaching session if you build a relationship with Marty, because he's keen to travel, keen to connect, and keen to share his knowledge. So I think we'll move on to Harold, unless there's any other comments or questions. Okay, I'll give a quick introduction to Harold, who's a boat builder and entrepreneur, who has lived a storied and adventurous life. Grew up on the Sunshine Coast of British Columbia, started building boats and playing with tools when he was just a little boy. Started off building trimarans and and other big sailing vessels. Learned from a stack of books in the days before there was the internet, and really built things with his hands and tested it actually, and gave it a go, and sailed down to the South Pacific in one of the boats that he built himself. Ended up in Hawaii for a bit, built a small windsurfing company, and then ended up coming back to British Columbia, where he, for a short stint, built some more boats, and built a replica of a World Cup sail, or a not World Cup, is it World Cup sailing, Harold?
That's an America's Cup boat. Yeah.
America's Cup. Yeah, the America's Cup sailing boat.
The Australia needed a full-size replica of the Australia too, so we put that together for them.
Yeah, so built that, built a bunch of floating homes, and homes that are still, people are still living in to this day. Even the boats that he's building, he built boats that last. Then started building rowboats in the 90s. Started with the classic Whitehall Spirit, and then moved into building the thermoform boats, the Whitehall Spirit boats, and then the Oar Board. So let's give a warm round of welcome. Welcome, Harold.
Hey.
The program.
Well, it's good to be here. It's good to be here. And we talked about doing this, and I thought it might be kind of interesting to take a look at the actual facility here. One of the reasons we've been able to sustain ourselves for the last 35 years is we've kind of played our cards pretty close to our chest the whole time. We've stayed away from being in debt, and basically bootstrapped our way along. And we've managed to grow pretty well. We're a long way from SpaceX, but we're doing our own thing quite nicely. Always looking for a way, like I'm interested in human power. My first love, I guess, is wind power, because I'm essentially a sailor in the background. But human power is on the water is really quite special. And I grew up with rowboats, so I kind of knew all about that. And kayaks showed up. Well, kayaks are nice, but they're one more avenue to the water, whereas rowing is kind of a special thing. It's hard to define. You use your entire body. Even with a fixed seat, you're pretty well locked into using most of your body to propel yourself. When I was a kid, there was a set of islands about 2 miles out from where I grew up. And we would row out there and it's right out in the middle of the strait. It's called the White Islets. And we would row out there to go cod fishing. And it was kind of formative, like 12 years old, or rowing out to this island, and you had to watch that water, because if it changed on you, suddenly you're in 3 or 4 feet of waves, and you want to avoid that at all costs. I think it only happened once or twice that we actually got caught. Plus, I had a pretty good boat, so I didn't have to worry too much about that. But you can get overpowered in nasty conditions. So you have to be really, really careful you don't get blown away at sea, as they say. So what led to the development of the Oar Board was we were looking at thousands and thousands of SUPs and thinking, they float, they've got the right shape, there must be a way to make them work as a rowboat. And the problem with, and by this time, I guess in the 90s, we evolved into sculling, where you're using your legs for power, a sliding seat. And all of our boats were pretty much slide seat rowboats, just health benefits that you use, 80, 90% of your muscles, and there's no stress on the knees. We all know that. But to make a short little stand-up paddleboard row, it has to be stable, fore and aft. Like it can't pitch, or hobby horse, as you call it, rowing. And I remembered the sliding rigger system that was invented by the Germans, or developed by the Germans in the 80s, when they were getting ready for the 88 Olympics. And it was outlawed because it was too efficient. And that kind of stuck in the back of my mind. So I thought, we better try building something like that. And it took us a full 14 months of developing prototypes to actually come up with a working model. And it had to be, and from the beginning, we had designed it to be a product that could go anywhere on the planet. So it had to stow into a little box. It had to be light enough, it had to assemble easy, and it had to be quick to build. So we started off with CNC machines, produced, I guess, a couple thousand of it using CNC machines. And over the last couple of years, we've transitioned into injection molded criteria and injection molded parts. So now we have a situation where we can produce some extreme volume, very high quality parts, and we're kind of ready to take it to the next level. So while we're still here in this little facility, we haven't gone to the next level yet. We should take a look around, and we can show our humble beginnings while they're still humble beginnings.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. We'd love to see. I'd love to ask you one question before we get up, though, is can you highlight some of the challenges you had in developing the first prototype? Can you think about some of the difficulties you had in getting this to work and how you overcame that?
Yeah, I can remember specifically. Diana Lassure, who you know, who's here, she's our sales manager. She and I are old friends, as are you and I, Adam. We were pretty perplexed. Like, when you take two 9'6" carbon fiber sculling oars and hold one in each hand and shove out with both legs together for all you're worth, that piece of gear has to be tough. It's got to handle it. And it's also got to be able to handle things like flipping over. Not that it happens that often, but it has to handle it. And so one of the challenges was simply to keep it simple enough. And I've never really been a fan of wheels and things, especially around salt water. They tend to clog up with salt, and they're complicated and they're expensive. So we were working with various kinds of plastic, slippery plastic, to make sure that we didn't have, there's basically one moving part, and that's the carriage itself. It slides on a track, boom. So unlike with four wheels, you'd have the wheels, the bearings, the axles, everything is moving. So that was challenging. I remember we were hung up when we first started it. We were kind of forming these parts to make them like a sliding seat. So there were little grooves and all kinds of shapes. And I still remember walking through the shop one afternoon and looking down at it and thinking, wait a minute, we've just gone way, way too complicated here. All we need is some means of keeping that carriage on the track, like a groove underneath that a tab runs in. And then the top of the track has to be nice and smooth and slick. And it turns out to be way more complicated than that, but nonetheless, that was the revelation. And we built some prototypes, and Diana was religiously testing them through the whole process. And we all have a lot of rowing experience, so we finally got it to the point where we thought, this is good. The other challenge was to make a rigger system that was tough enough to handle that too, because not only does the carriage have to be strong enough, the track has to be strong enough, but the riggers are going to take all of that strain and then transfer it onto the carriage. But then it all has to come apart and fit in a small box so you can ship it anywhere on the planet. And it has to be light enough. So those were the challenges we slowly overcome. But I have a background in working with a variety of mediums, aluminum, stainless, plastics of all kinds, and a very practical oriented background, which really served the project well. And I had a lot of help from Colin Rolls, who is our production manager, who is also extremely talented and has an eye for these things. So between, and then Adam was coming in, you were coming in and testing with us.
I was trying to break it.
Yeah, I couldn't
break it. And I've broken my share of rowing equipment.
Yeah, right. We won't go into that. Yeah, so no, it's been a challenge. And like I said, now we're into the, I guess you would call it the third generation. And it's pretty cool. All injection molded, custom shaped seats. We spent literally hundreds of hours designing the plastic parts because we actually had to design the plastic parts and the molds that make the plastic parts. So that's a little more complicated, but it's actually kind of fun. I enjoy that kind of thing. So, and it works. You know, the odds of having some little screw up, and we've had a few screw ups. I mean, when shipment came in and they'd given us the wrong kind of plastic, man, and then God, we were phoning people all over the country saying, hey, we're sending you new parts. And, you know, but that's another advantage, I guess, of being a bit smaller, because we could handle it. I mean, we had maybe a couple of hundred people we had to satisfy, and I think without question 100% were behind our project, and we're completely happy with things.
Yeah. Well, I think as people get to know OarBoard and what we stand for, we're, you know, it's a very small, approachable company, and we care so much about getting people on the water, getting people rowing, you know, making sure that everybody's fit and having fun, and you know, doing it safely and having adventures. That, you know, one, you know, having you at the helm to create a product of such high quality, that two, we're very happy to stand behind. So if there are ever any issues, that's what I've always seen from behind the scenes, is that we're more than willing to help make it right, help make sure that people are served properly, and you know, and get a real human response. I think some people will even be surprised when they see pictures of Diana on the video, and then she picks up the phone. She's like, "Oh, hey, you want to buy an OarBoard?" It's like, did I just see you as like you're the model and the salesperson? Yep, that's, yeah, that's small business for you. And it's, I think it's really nice to know that in a world of, you know, world of impersonal big business, that you're getting a very you know, a very human touch.
Yeah, well, margins are very important, and every time you add a person, I mean, like, you get very good at percentages. I've been doing this for 35 years now, so I look at percentages all the time, and I know full well that if I add one or two people, I've got to add a couple of $100,000 worth of sales on the other end just to make it work, or more or less or whatever. But you know, there's a ratio, and you got to be careful with that. And of course, you never know what's going to happen next on the world stage itself. You know, COVID was disastrous for many people and many companies, but ours did really quite well because people were trapped at home on their computers, and they discovered us, and our sales actually doubled, and in many cases tripled through COVID. They're actually slowing down a little bit now, but we're thinking that it's just because it's more like normal. And across North America now, a lot of the lakes are still frozen solid, and there's usually a big influx in sales toward the end of this month and on into May. So, anything else you think I should be covering? Oh, I guess we developed the world's first two-part carbon fiber sculling oar.
Yes.
Very critical feature. Without that, we'd have no OarBoard, because you can't ship a 9'6" sculling oar anywhere on the planet. But if you break it into two parts and put it in a nice bag so it doesn't get damaged. Along with the OarBoard, of course, we had to design wheelie bags and all kinds of gear that protects it so people can get on an aircraft and fly with it. It's been a big job, no question.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's been very innovative. You know, that's, you know, it's by far, I think, some of the most innovative additions to the rowing community in the last, you know, 10, 20 years has been the OarBoard. And the two-part, I still remember the first time picking up those two-part carbon oars, having had a history in flat water rowing, and just thinking, this is ingenious. Why is this the first time we've seen anything like that? So it's pretty great.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of companies producing them now. Not as many as we do, but you know, it's catching on.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's good to see people, like I say, human power, getting it out there. Make sure that carbon that's coming out is coming out of the lungs.
Well, I'd love to get a tour and have you walk around the shop. I just wanted to have one question because I know John Stapleton had asked a question about handle heights and lifting and how that could be, and what possibility for change there is. From what I'm aware is, again, you talk a lot about simplicity. In every boat that you build, you have to make an element of compromise. And so we have the one set of riggers right now that has a height, and we've created a lower set of riggers, the junior rig, but I was wondering if you had any other comments on that, Harold.
Well, I would say, well, you've been involved in testing the lowered riggers, and even I've rowed with them. It's not impossible. You just have to be in rougher water. It would be not so much to your advantage because there'd be less space to maneuver the handles, but they can be, we haven't advertised them yet because we just haven't had, the ability. That's the downside of wearing too many hats. And but if someone was interested in obtaining some, maybe contact Diana and we could work something out. They'll be interchangeable with what's available. And so it's just a matter of unbuckling the riggers that you have and putting the lower ones on. And if you lower it even 1.5 inches at the end, it's going to drop it down considerably on the handles. So I think that's the way to go. Keep it simple.
The first thing I'm going to try is just popping off the little protective coatings on either side, because I'm sure those oar locks are just like all the oar locks that I work on at the boathouse. And there might be some spacers in there that I can just drop it 1 centimeter or 2, or 1.5 centimeters. I don't know that for me, I'm 5'9", and the oars they ride, I actually stop up about here. And when I'm sculling, well, you can't see, I'm sculling, I'm down here at my rib. And when I'm on the oar board, I'm up here.
And
But maybe I can shift the length, not the length, the button on the oar, because I'm just paddling around on that little lake.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think I'm going to be the person that's going to go and get the rig for the small kids, because I'm not really that small.
Well, we joke around and we call it the junior rig, but I had a friend out there who was 5'6", and it actually fit him.
Mm-hmm.
It fit him better, what we call the junior rig.
Right.
Maybe we just need to call it something else. So it doesn't feel like we're being a kid with that size of rig, but
well, it's interesting. I think somewhere around here. Yeah, here we are. How about this for pulling something out of my hip pocket? Here's a prototype pair. 6 months ago. And these don't have the bolts and ends or anything on them, but this is it right here.
Yeah.
And I know that we've got 26 boxes or something in inventory of kid riggers that are destined to be sold. We just haven't started marketing them yet. So we call them kid riggers. I mean, what the heck, but it's just a slightly lower.
Right.
The other problem, of course, an oar board sits on top of a paddle board, which is already a lot higher.
Yes. And, I have to say that when I'm on the oar board, it's so balanced and it's so easy. It doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the transition on Sunday from oar board to Monday on the scull.
Yeah.
So I just have to stay at the lake longer. That's all.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll have more stuff coming out about the lowered riggers in the near future.
Yeah. Well, how about you give us a tour and walk us around a little bit and show us some of the back
Okay.
of the factory, because you're in your workstation right now.
Yep. Our humble little office.
Yeah.
It's some people working from home. This is the heart of the company. This is Yvonne waving. That's a big editing suite over here in the corner where a lot of the stuff comes from that you see on the internet. I don't know where Ryan is hiding. He's off here somewhere. He's our shipper, quality control, and purchaser. And moving along here, here's Clark working away on, and this little guy here. Say hi. Yeah, so what are we working on here?
Working on the websites,
Oh, yeah.
working on an email newsletter going out, all sorts of things.
Yeah,
Multitasking.
multitasking as usual. So here we are. Diana's with me. We're going to walk out into the shop. And here's where the action happens. We're now looking back into the shop. Here's Diana. Get in stereo here. So this is our industrious crew. Autographing that, eh?
Yes.
This is Colin Rolls, our production manager.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you.
And is it Daniel, Rodrigo. These guys are all wood experts, and they produce this amazing quality, high-end woodwork that you see that we're kind of internationally famous for, actually. So there's three basic product lines that we produce. And one of them is the classic rowboats, fiberglass hulls, teak woodwork, bronze fittings, built to last 100 years. And this is a compact little building. So we're gonna progress through here, and this is not active right now, but this is where the fiberglass hulls actually get produced. The molds are stored outside the facility, and the actual mold work is done in here. And there's a air filtration system in the building that makes sure that the air is pretty much cleaner going out than it is coming in. So there's a couple of fiberglass hulls. And now, not wasting any space here at all, we'll move over into this next area, which is where we actually produce the Solo and the Tango. We actually don't produce the parts, they're thermoformed off-site, and we do the assembly here. We can do about 4 of these a week. It's kind of limited production, but it's enough to keep things rolling along. So when we went into the Oar Board, for a while there, we had it jammed into the wood shop. And now that summer's coming, we're actually able to utilize outside a little more. So we're going to head over to another module. But first of all, here's Corey busy putting together some of our fancy looking carbon fiber boards. This is as close to sunbathing as we get. And we're kind of utilizing every square inch of our facility. This is our little warehouse back here. There's about forget how many pairs there is in that pile. Hey Corey, how many pairs came in on that shipment?
There's 10 boxes there and then another 40 in this box.
Jesus.
So you're looking at probably
90
oars.
90 oars. Yeah. So not a huge number, but that's the numbers we deal with. So carrying on here now, we're out in the yard and swing around the corner. And there's a series of buildings here that we use to store various pieces of equipment, and boats and whatnot. But now we're going into the module that we just put together last year, where we actually assemble the Oar Board. And I see this is James down here in the corner.
We can point it off this way.
Oh.
Hello. Hi. How you doing?
I gotta watch where I point this thing.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a stack of them here. We can produce, if we really were pushed to produce about 50 a week, we generally produce about 25 a week. And that's a nice little number. Here's some Hi, introduce yourself.
I'm Kalen. Hey.
Sculling Warlocks. And we actually designed and build our own sculling Warlocks now. I don't know if we improved the design at all, but it's pretty much identical to a Concept 2 or a standard, gated Orlock. And they're all pre-assembled before they get to be assembled into the Oar Board. So one of the things I wanted to show, I guess we'll just do it right here. So this, as you can see now, there's an amazing fine detail on all these latest products. Well, we probably have to go back inside and show you some of the finer points. However, that in a nutshell, of course, we've got piles of products. We actually have a warehouse here. We have a number of 40-foot containers stacked on the other side of the building that's full of stuff. And then we have a warehouse down in Washington State that we service our US market with. So anybody got any questions?
Let's any questions about the production or the facility?
I think we got that. Okay. All right.
I think we've had a great tour.
Yeah.
John has typed in a question. He said, "Are the new bases more slippery than the old ones?"
They're not any less slippery. I think they probably are a little more slippery. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I would say they're a little more slippery. One of the things that when we were developing the product, we did a lot of testing, and we did try ultra slippery, and it's really strange. Like with a fixed seat sliding rigger system, ultra slippery is a bit of a hassle. You lose a bit of control. Anyway, here's something else that's interesting. This is our OarBoard sprinter van with our industrial. Hiya, Will. You're hitting the road with another load for the warehouse.
That's it.
Yep. Have a good trip. All right. Okay. So anyway, never a dull moment around here.
And so John is saying on his lake, there's a very fine mud that seems to gunk up the slide sometimes. And so sometimes it can get in the way of when you're boarding. So do you try washing it off, John, or how does that affect you?
I do wash it off. The lake is very clear. It's it's pretty much drinkable water, but the silt on the bottom is very, very fine. So when I walk into the lake and then onto the Oar Board, it just gets around it. I think sometimes that it's maybe my drive that's a little weird compared to, because I'm flipping back and forth between a scull and the Oar Board. And I do wash it off. It's not like a super big deal. It's just something like when Harold mentioned that he worked on finding the slippery plastic, it was like, yeah, I see that that's a real issue there. The way it's built is that those two things are so basic. So no big deal. Just interesting.
So let's just take a quick look at that right now. I just happen to have one right here. And the newer models, I don't know if you can see it, but there's an insert here of a special kind of plastic. It's a forget the name of it right now. Any rate, we formulated it so that it was ultra slippery. And so if you've got one of the old systems, you can see that this is quite a bit different.
Actually, this is the second generation. That's right. So this is the final generation. We actually had to change this. You can see how it's solid along there. We were getting some distortion. That meant redesigning it and building new molds. So this is the final project, state of the art. And this thing, okay, there's a little bit of resistance on this one. On this one, it's floating. It's really, really slick. And as you can see too, the seat design is quite a bit different. And this ultra new seat is pretty cool because it just has a knob.
No, that's the one behind.
And the seat just comes off like that. It's just so much simpler. I don't know if I can get it back on, it'd be nice. Well, not with the phone in my hand, so I'll just leave it like that for now. Anyway, you get an idea. So we're not quite as bad as Apple, but we do change from year to year. And yeah, a little stack of boards here. Any other questions? One of the things that you folks could point out to people, and there are other ways you could do a sliding rigger system, but I think it's one of the things that we stuck with was making the foot stop adjustable. Because with a sliding seat, you can adjust your foot stop, and basically the relationship between the rigger and the rower's arms, it floats, so it doesn't matter, it's self-adjusting. But with the Oar Board, you have to be able to adjust the relationship between leg length, the bottom of the soles of your feet, and the pin. And we've done that as well. I mean, you could probably take it to the nth degree and design a product. If we were doing Olympic racing, we would have that so you could adjust it right down to the nearest millimeter. But we're trying to develop a product that's tough enough to go out in the field, be enjoyed by people, and its main purpose is to have fun or to take on adventures. And it's got to be tough enough to handle that. I guess you can hear the offshore sailor in me, because tough enough to handle it is where it comes from when you're crossing oceans. So what else can I show you about this? Any questions? Ooh.
Like, what do you have in the pipeline? Because you're always inventing new things and playing with new ideas, and you're always on the search for innovating. So what's in store for the Oar Board?
Well, as we get rolling, we're a bit constricted right now with space, and we could probably develop more stuff if we had a little more space. It would be nice to have, like, the junior row model is actually intended to be developed into a nice board for kids. We think that there's kids or anybody who's under 5'6" and under, I don't know, even 200 pounds. Weight isn't a big problem on a SUP, although height and leg length is. Like, it needs to match that. So there's the junior row, and I've always wanted to do a racing board of some kind, just to, something in the maybe the 26-inch beam and 15 feet long or something like that. There is a few models on the market, but I think there's a company in Austria that produces something that's along that line, but their system doesn't really compare with ours. But so I'm not too worried about it. But I do look at them closely to see if there's anything that can be learned. We don't have anything in the no, just improving is what we're doing right now. Improving subtly and keeping things rolling forward.
Yeah. Well, how about we leave it at that, and we thank you. We wrap it up. And so thank you very much for the tour of the factory, Harold, and sharing your story and your background.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you to all the ambassadors for joining in and sharing your interest. And we'll do one more round of the ambassadors who are still on, just to give us your final word. So how about the final word, we start with John, or if you have a question, we can continue the conversation.
No more questions. More questions. I do like Harold's hat. I think that's a great looking hat. If that's what you're handing out, I want one of them.
Okay,
And,
we can arrange that.
I like the brim. And plus, it has the Oar Board on the side.
Well, I actually designed this hat.
There you go.
Yeah, so I think I had 100 made. And there's a few kicking around. I can get you one.
I just can't wait to get up to my lake and get the Oar Board out again. I'm just going to have to work a little bit harder on promoting Oar Board around Philadelphia and Fiddle Lake, which is outside Scranton, PA. So
right.
Thanks a lot for doing this, Harold. This was really great, and I love the product.
One of the times what we're looking at right now is I've been doing it for like 35 years. There is a consciousness. You wanted to get my attention, Diana? We're out of time. Oh, we got 2 minutes here.
Okay.
So no, we really appreciate what the ambassadors are doing, because we're trying to keep costs down and keep it. A lot of people complain about the price, but to build something that's tough enough to take it, it's pretty tough to do it any less expensive. So we really, really appreciate where you guys are coming from. All right. So
Great.
That's it.
That's it. That's all. That's any final words from you, Ashley?
I'll echo John, just saying I think it's a great product, and I was so excited when I found it because I was 14 years not on the water. Also, I was thinking when you were talking about your partnership with one of the rowing clubs, I know the Ottawa Rowing Club, I had seen something in the news recently that they were trying to get a new program that had COVID distancing in place. So it would be a great way to kind of sell it to rowing clubs right now in the time of COVID, that it's a easy way to get a bunch of people out and socially distance. And also the Ottawa, having rowed there for 2 summers, it's so rough and full of deadheads and boats and everything. So I'll try and email them and maybe CC you guys and start up an introduction there. But I know they're actively trying to find a way to make COVID more physically distant still for the summer, because we're in our 6th wave here in Ottawa. So
Thank you.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that. The introduction to the Ottawa Rowing Club, I think it would be a great fit. I've got good memories of rowing, or I don't know if they're good memories, rowing at the Ottawa Rowing Club and a storm coming through and a ton of boats capsizing and running up and down.
Yeah, the one regatta I did there was a couple of capsized boats.
Yes. And Bud, we'll give the final word to you, Bud. Bring us home.
Wow. Oh, that was a great presentation today, and I really enjoyed walking through the shop. I felt like I was there. Actually, I was thinking I'd love to fly up there sometime and check it out in person. So thank you very much. That was great.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bud. And thank you, Harold. Thank you, Diana, Ashley, John, you as well, Michael, you're sitting silently in the background. And we will see you next ambassador meeting.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
So long. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.